Hey guys, so today we are checking out the top 3 amp sims for 2020. Top 5 list that I've got in no particular order, and these are just as far as I'm concerned. If you think that I've missed any, let me know in the comments. I'd love to check them out. Yeah, like I said, no particular order, just 5 awesome amp sims that you can pick up for free. I'll put the links in the description. So now we're going to play each of the amp sims one after another in the context of a mix, so you can sort of hear them side by side. Now is listen to each of them individually, as well as double tracked in the mix, and then in the mix so you can hear them all together and get a bit more of a comparison of which ones you prefer the sound of. So talking through the signal chain then for the guitars, we are first going into the Greed Smasher by Mercurial, which is a free overdrive pedal plugin. Gain is at minimum, max level, and adding a bit of tone to the signal as well, because my guitar is quite dark. Then going into the amp sims and ending up in Get Good Drums Zilla Cabs studio plugin. The settings themselves for each of the amp sims is exactly the same across all of the channels. The only difference for the EQ is just going to be the cabs that we're running them into on the GGD Zilla cabs, and those are all just off the presets right here on the right. Then the left, right and central channels are going into a guitar bus which has a compressor on, this Waves CLA 76. This is mainly just to have the levels between each of the amp sims be more consistent. I've tried to level match them as best as possible, but just to make sure that they are going into the bus. Then after that we're going into some EQ with a high pass set to about 100, a low pass at about 10k, taking out some of the frequencies sort of around the 5-6k area, and just taking out a little bit of the mids as well, because those can start to build up in the mix if you're not too careful. Then finally on the guitar bus we're just running into the S1 Imager by Waves as well, and that's just widening the left and right guitars by about 50%. Okay, so let's move on to our list then. So starting up, we've got AmpliTube 5. AmpliTube 5 Custom Shop is the free version of the software and comes with about 5 or so amps. One of those is the Brit 8000, which is a Marshall JCM 800 clone. And what we're doing here with AmpliTube 5 is just using the amp sim. We've turned off the cab sim, and that's all going into Zilla Studio Cab. So first listening on its own then, it sounds like this. Then the left, right and central channels together sound like this. So Amplitude 5 then, in the context of the mix, sounds like this. So I hope you agree, it sounds fantastic. I think the new edition of Amplitude is really good and a big step up from AmpliTube 4. Next up we have the L12X amp sim from Audiort. So the L12X is a solid state sim of, I think it's like a Marshall MG series. Weird to have a amp sim of like a small practice amp, but actually when you put it into a decent cab sim, it sounds fantastic. So running into the studio cab as well then, the Audiort L12X on its own sounds like this. And then the guitar left, guitar right and central channel together sound like this. And finally, for the L12X, everything together in the mix sounds like this. Really cool amp sim from Audiort. Quite a new company actually to the amp sim world, and they've been coming out with some really fantastic plugins, mainly in the solid state area at the moment, but look forward to seeing more of what they do in 2021. Then next up we've got Amped Roots, the free version from ML Sound Lab. ML Sound Lab have released some awesome stuff this year, and some really great free plugins as well, include Miko Cab Simulator and the Stevie T Gent God plugin. So as you might have guessed from the interface, the Amped Roots 5034 Fluff is based on the 5153 EVH amplifier, and on its own sounds like this. Then the guitar left, right and central channels together sound like this. And finally, everything together in the mix sounds like this. Really good amp sim, and the way that ML Sound Lab on Miko has been just pushing out plugins and amp sims this year has been absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to see more from them next year and to see what type of amps they're simulating. Also good as well that in the list so far, the AmpliTube 5 free amps and the L12X have both been Marshall style amps, so good to have an American sound in our catalogue as well for free amp sims. And then next up, we've got one that most of you will probably already be familiar with, the Ignite Amps Emissary with STL tones. So whilst this isn't brand new for this year, a new version of the amp sim did come out this year, version 2, and that brings it in line of STL Tone's Amp Hub software that they brought out a couple of months ago as well. So loads that you can do with this amp sim. I think for the longest time this has sort of been the king of free amp sims, and rightly so. On its own, the Emissary sounds like this. And then the left, right and central channels sound like this. Everything together in the mix with the Ignite Emissary sounds like this. Still sounds great despite the fact that it's one of the older ones on our list. And then moving on to the last free amp sim on our best free amp sims of 2020 list is the Amplex by Nalex. So this year Nalex brought out a load of free amp sims, and that sort of came together with the release of the Amplex, which was everything that they had already released in one package. You've got 5150s in here, Friedmans, Marshalls, pretty much everything you can think of, and you just load them all in by just clicking on the presets button here, and you can just load the text files for each amp. And whilst I'm saying that these amp sims are in no particular order, I will say that I saved the Nalex Amplex for last, as I do think it's the best free amp sim available at the moment, just with the amount that you can do with it and the quality of each of the sounds within the presets. So on its own then, the Amplex sounds like this. And then with the left, right and central channels together sounding like this. And then everything together with the Nalex Amplex in the mix sounding like this. So that is the top 5 free amp sims of 2020, in my own opinion. It's been a fantastic year for the amp sim community. There's been some amazing stuff released, both paid and free, and it's brilliant that now the free plugins are sort of catching up with the paid plugins. I think all sort of following the lead of the Ignite Emissary, and seeing the likes of lots of independent publishers from Nalex and Audiort. But that's it for me speaking to you, so thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.